Is it too soon to start wearing hoodies in all my videos? Well, I guess I did it anyways. I have another scary story for you guys. I wanted to try to find a series that I could read throughout October, but I haven't really been able to find anything good. All of the stories that I've read so far that have multiple parts are just amazing, and I am not willing to settle for less. So if you guys have any longer stories that you want me to read, please send them to me. The story that I'm reading today I actually found maybe 20 minutes ago because I searched ghost on no sleep. I've been wanting to read more paranormal related stories, especially for October, because it's going to be like a lot of Ouija board stuff this month, and I want to do a lot of like really spooky shit. This one's not necessarily spooky, but it sounded interesting. Like, this story is called I Fell in Love with a Ghost. This isn't your typical story of love at first sight. In reality, it's kind of a love horror story. I was 17, and she could have been 30 in ghost years at the time for all I knew, had I known she was dead, which I didn't. Are ghost years even a thing? I first encountered her on the bus on my way to school. I moved with my mom into the country and went to school in a small farm town in the Midwest. The bus would pick me up at 6:30 a.m. every day. I was the second one to get picked up on the route, and the second to last to be dropped off. The girl I had the hots for being the only person who had to be picked up before me and dropped off after. The bus driver would greet everyone by name every morning, so I knew all 12 or so of the people on the bus, except for her, as if they were all family, albeit one that I didn't really care for. I was quiet and got picked on a lot, so I kept to myself. I didn't really talk to anyone. It didn't help that the bane of my existence rode the same bus as me. We'll call him Dalton. He was the epitome of an asshole. He knew that my dad had left when I was little and that my mom was odd. He reminded me of it every day. I love my mother, but when I was on the bus, I selfishly despised her for the life I had been given, even though I knew it wasn't really her fault. But anyways, I saw her on the bus all the time, but I never saw her outside of the bus. I always figured I probably just never had a class with her or something. I'd had a crush on her since I could remember. She always had this pastel, spring-esque dress that just felt warm looking at it. She had the deepest brown hair and the fairest of skin that contrasted in much the same way the moon contrasts the night sky. I never saw her eyes because she was always looking down or out of the window. I wanted to talk to her, hear her voice, learn her name. She had a mystique that consistently took my breath away, and the mystery of her silence added to my yearning. But I was always too chicken. This went on for quite some time. Then, I'd had a particularly bad day at school one day. Dalton had embarrassed me more than normal. I got in trouble for some shit another kid did, and Dalton embarrassed me again. I was mad, and I knew I needed to calm down. I figured maybe I could use a bad day as motivation to talk to the girl on the bus. I thought today was already bad enough. If I got rejected, I wouldn't really have lost anything. The end of school came, and I made my way to the bus. People were piling in, and when I got on, I saw her, sitting by herself, towards the middle end of the bus. I felt my heart jump to my throat as I did my best to build up the courage I had earlier that day. I made my way to her and sat down in the seat next to hers. She was staring at the ground and didn't look at me when I sat down. I was quiet for a second, and I awkwardly said, "Hey, I've seen you on the bus since I can remember, but I never got your name. I'm John." I remember thinking to myself, that was casual and normal sounding. Smooth, right? She didn't answer. I thought, maybe I'm not as smooth as I thought. And then I tried again, to say something like, "I like your dress. It gives off a warm spring vibe." But my awkward ass let the shit fall out of my mouth. "I like your dress. It vibes a warm spring." John, fuck you. It was at that moment I first thought I would be single indefinitely. But she slowly raised her face to look at me, and she had this shocked look on her face, and it was the first time I'd ever seen her eyes. Her eyes were a milk chocolate color that melted me into my own bowl of heart-fluttering chocolatiness. I started to panic. She still had this shocked, terrified look on her face, and I started to think that maybe I said something horribly wrong. But what she said next caught me so off guard. I didn't know what to say. "You can see me?" "What?" I said, "Of course I can see you. Why wouldn't I be able to? It's kind of hard to miss you." She said, "Because no one ever notices me. No one ever did." "No one ever did? What do you mean? How does somebody like you not get noticed? You're really beautiful," I said. She looked at me like I had just committed a horrendous crime at the moment I said that. "Beautiful? What?" She sounded as if she'd never even knew the word. Yeah, you're pretty." "John, you silver-tongued bastard." My eloquence was a panty dropper. Then she dropped the bombshell. "You know I'm dead, right?" In hindsight, her bluntness was sexy. "Wait, you're... what?" I questioned, absolutely confused. She proved it by reaching out to grab my hand, and she passed right through it, like she was made of water, and I felt a slight chill where she touched me. I should have been terrified, jumped, screamed, but I didn't. I was captivated, and all I was able to say was, "How?" She said, "My name is, or was rather, Luna. I died about 18 years ago, on this bus." I asked her how, again. She died on a school bus of all places. She told me the story of how she used to ride the bus to school with her brother and how she was bullied really badly, just like I was. She said one day one of her bullies that rode the bus with her started to be exceptionally cruel. She said she'd had enough and tried to tell him off when he got out of his seat, pissed, and made his way towards her when her brother stood ready to fight. The bully pulled a knife out of his bag. What happened next kinda happened fast. Luna stood up in some kind of effort to protect her brother as the bully swung the knife. Meanwhile, the bus driver had seen what was happening and slammed on the brakes, causing everyone to fly forward towards the front of the bus. Luna fell forward onto the knife, the blade piercing her at the base of her neck. She said she was dead before the ambulance got there. She had been stuck on the bus ever since, never leaving, never being seen. She said she could only physically interact with things if she was angry or had some other kind of extremely powerful emotion, like anger or fear. But she wasn't an angry person in life, so she never really interacted with anything during her time in her mobile prison. She had watched kids come and go on the bus for nearly 2 decades, and no one ever even knew she was there. Until now. During all of this, I was having the worst sort of emotional hurricane you could imagine. Here I was, listening to the girl of my dreams tell me her life story, and me telling a little of my own. Her smile was toxic, her eyes, her hair, her voice, and I couldn't even touch her, and I would never be able to. She saw me several times try to reach for her hand while she told her story. The look of sadness on my face gave away my true feelings. She knew without me even saying how I felt about her, and she knew it would never be. "I like you, John, a lot. You're so sweet, and if I were still alive, I could see myself dating you, maybe, but..." She looked down, saddened. We locked eyes in silence for a while before the moment was ruined by asshole Dalton, who was sitting a couple seats away. "Hey, shithead, looks like you're going just as crazy as your crackcore mother talking to yourself over there. Or are you sharing your mom's stash? I bet her pipe is shaped like a dick so she can get both her favorite things at once." Seriously? Fuck Dalton. I heard Luna whisper to me, "I'll fix this for you." She walked, or glided, right through me and through the seats right up to Dalton, who still couldn't see her. What happened next was the stuff nightmares are made of. And it was kinda hot. Her image blinked for a second, and suddenly Dalton could see her face and he fell back in his seat shaken. Luna's face stretched vertically, her eyes turning black, her skin brown, and it looked like it was tearing. The place where the knife entered her neck split more wide than any knife could have ever been. Her teeth, all of them, formed into long, narrow black fangs that stuck out of her mouth that had opened wider than any normal human mouth should ever open. She then let out the loudest, most blood-curdling scream I've ever heard that was laced with years of loneliness, despair, pain, fear, and anger. Dalton fainted out of fear. Me, being the closet horror movie buff that I was, had a shiver of ecstasy run down my spine. I was hot. Plus Dalton had been silent, so +1 for that as well. My day had been made. The bus driver, who couldn't see Dalton passed out on his seat, stopped the bus and looked back, trying to figure out what just happened. I smugly shrugged my shoulders as if I had no idea what he was talking about when he asked what the noise was. The other half-dozen or so people on the bus sat there frozen, unable to process what they had just witnessed. During this time, Luna made her way back to me and apologized that I had to see that, but she said that he wouldn't be bugging me anymore. She said she never liked him. We talked on the bus for the rest of my time in high school. I always would eagerly wait for the bus in the morning and couldn't wait for school to be over to get back on. I even had a car when I'd become a senior, but I told my mom I was saving money by taking the bus, so she didn't question it. Then came graduation. I tried to keep that day out of my mind as long as possible, because I knew what it eventually meant. The day I never stepped foot on the bus again. She knew it was coming, and she did the best she could to take my mind off of it. I needed to tell her. I wish I would have sooner. It was my last day on the bus, and she knew it. My house was quickly approaching. "Luna," I said, staring at the floor. "It's okay, John. I understand." She could read me like a book. I know it's probably stupid. I've never felt like this about anybody. You've been the only person I could ever talk to, and you've been so kind to me. It's not fair. I can't even hold your hand. And if I tried to kiss you, I'd be tasting the window behind you because I'd fall through. Plus, you're practically 30. It sucks. It's not fair. Why can't you haunt me not on the bus? Who's stopping you? I was choking down tears while trying to whisper so the driver didn't hear me losing my shit. John. She wanted to say something, but she didn't know what. She knew the moment I left that bus and her, I'd be a lonely wreck. I never wanted to get off of that bus. I tried probably half a dozen times, frantically trying to hold her hand as we pulled up to my house, only smacking my fingernails against the hard leather. If anyone else had been watching, they would have thought I was angrily smacking the bus seat. She watched with a sad look, unable to do anything. I looked up at her, tears welling in my eyes, and she met my gaze with a look that only the ghost of a lover could give to someone that was still alive and didn't know how to deal with it. I love you, Luna. I love you too, John. Goodbye. I ran off the bus, into my house, straight into my room, slamming the door and bawling my eyes out. I didn't come out for a day or two. My mother was completely confused as to what happened. It probably didn't help that I didn't want to talk about it. A few days later, I had an idea. I waited until it was late at night. I got in the car that I never drove and drove to where they kept the school buses overnight. I hopped the fence and looked for my bus. When I finally found it, I broke in. I shined my flashlight all around the bus looking for her, but she wasn't there. Luna? I whispered in desperation. Nothing. I sat down in the seat I last saw her and cried silently. A moment later, John, what are you doing here? It was the first time I'd seen her in the moonlight. In the darkness, the light from the moon made her appear translucent, yet glowing. A literal beacon in my otherwise dark world. Ironic, corny, cheesy, and I'm stupid. I don't want to be without you, Luna. Nothing would be the same without you. I want to be with you, I cried. There's only one way that could happen, and I can't let you do that. I won't let you end your life early just because of me. She was firm about it, too. I can either spend my life alone and sad and maybe marry somebody who I don't really love, and eventually I'd still die alone, and after that, I'll be alone forever. Why not die now and never be alone? I sounded hysterical. I still think I was out of my mind. Who was I kidding? I was in love with a ghost. Before she could respond, somebody yelled out, "Hey, who the hell is in there? Come out." I probably should have mentioned before that my bus driver was also the one who ran the bus barn/school transportation system. He also practically lived in the bus barn. He was standing outside of the bus with a shotgun. I didn't blame him. What kind of nutjob breaks into a bus yard at 2:30 a.m.? Oh yeah, me. He systematically began searching all of the buses, looking for the cause of the noise that was my loud-ass mouth. All while Luna was telling me to run away. What can I say? I'm stubborn and stupid. Very stupid. He was walking towards the bus that I was on. As he was about 10 feet away from the door, I charged. I had a plan. Luna caught on to what I was doing and made for the door to stop me. The driver saw me burst out of the door, startling him. Bam. It sounded like someone blasted a shotgun off right next to my head. Because, well, duh. But it was way louder than a normal shotgun. It sounded unnatural. It almost sounded like there were two blasts instead of one, like some fabric of reality that had just been blown apart. My eyes had been squeezed shut, and I was shaking. I wasn't in pain, and I was still standing, so I figured I'd either died and was already a ghost, or I hadn't died. I slowly opened my eyes. What I saw in front of me was something that should have been impossible. It was Luna. She was off the bus. On the other side of her was the driver, with a look of absolute shock in his face. The shotgun had been fired, but it missed everything but the bus. Holding the barrel was Luna. She had grabbed the barrel and pointed it in the other direction, saving my life. The driver could see her too. What he said next caught me off guard. "Luna?" he said shakily. "What the shit? How does the bus driver know her name?" "Sunny," was all she said. "Okay, what the hell?" "But I saw you died," he said. How did he know her? "I know. I never left though. I've always been here. On the bus," she said. "I'm sorry." "I'm so sorry," he replied. I started to pick up what was going on. "It's okay, Sunny. It wasn't your fault," she said. He broke down right then and there. There were no words for a minute, and then, "If only Mom knew that you were still on the bus. Maybe she wouldn't have... He couldn't finish the sentence. This seemed to catch Luna off guard. Here she was, having her brother tell her that her mom committed suicide shortly following her death, and she was finding out almost 20 years after the fact. Sunny looked at me and said, "Who the hell are you?" I was so stunned by what was unfolding in front of me that I couldn't even speak. Luckily, Luna explained for him who I was, and that I wasn't here up to no good. It wasn't until I finally spoke up about what I was really speechless over did they realize the gravity of the situation. Up until that point, Luna was translucent in the moonlight. She was standing solidly in front of me, and she had grabbed a shotgun barrel, mid-fire, only moments ago. "Luna?" I paused. "I don't think you're..." I said wide-eyed. The reality of this quickly swept over the three of us as she looked down at herself, noticing that she was no longer partially transparent. She looked up at me, slightly scared, slightly excited, and raised her hand. I hesitated, and I reached out. Her hand was warm. And that is the end of that story. I just thought it was a lot different. It's not necessarily like a scary story. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this story. If you have any stories you want me to read, go ahead and send them to me. I always have my social media linked down below. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye. I drank all my Diet Coke and this is all just like watered down ice. It's a tough life I live, honestly. All right, see ya.